All right, we got an alert. House lawmakers will receive a classified briefing today on the successful U.S. strikes on Tehran's nuclear program.
So this comes as Iran's foreign minister makes new comments on the damage to their nuclear facility.
So let's get right to Mike Tobin, who is live in Israel. He's in Tel Aviv. Hey, Mike.
Good morning, Ainsley. Good morning, gang. We're still in the mode of determining the extent of damage done to Iran's nuclear program by this 12-day war. Former U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice spoke with Bret Baier last night and said it was irresponsible to leak and publish the information from that early low-confidence intelligence report. She said that the Iranian nuclear program has indeed been set back and the entire region changed by 20 months of war since October 7th.
When you look at what the Israelis were able to do to Hezbollah, what they were able to do to Hamas, the significant efforts against the Iranian military establishment, against scientists, this really is a now crippled Iran. And a crippled Iran is good for the region.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi spoke on Iranian state TV and undermined what was said by the Grand Ayatollah. He said significant damage was indeed done to Iran's nuclear program.
I must say that the damage is excessive and serious. But for the inspectors to visit, that is a decision that must be made. And in my opinion, in accordance with the law of the parliament, the Supreme National Security Council should make this decision.
Araghchi also countered President Trump and said there are no plans for talks between Iranian and U.S. representatives. Now, the Guardian Council of Iran passed a measure that would ban cooperation with Iran and the UN nuclear watchdog, the IAEA. The Director General of the IAEA says that would put Iran outside of international law. Guys, back to you.
So, Mike, is there a sense that we might have a new Iran? Is anyone thinking that, or we just think we have a Iran that's been knocked back?
Well, I think it's very significant that you have the foreign minister on state TV undermining what was said by the Grand Ayatollah. You wouldn't have seen that in the past. It seems to be an evolution toward modernization if you have someone looking practically at the situation and giving an evaluation, as opposed to the usual grand bellicose statements that you get out of Iranian leaders.
You know, Mike, I was looking at all the Iranian activists that I follow, and a lot of people pointed out how much the Ayatollah has aged just over the past, before the strike and after the strike. He doesn't look so well. Did you recognize that?
I didn't really recognize that. I just noticed the fact that he didn't come out for a long time. But I think that was somewhat old-fashioned, where you have so many people in these days of social media reacting very quickly to things. I think the Grand Ayatollah thought he had his time, he could take his time coming out to make a public statement. It took him a little while, but I think that's just because he's old school.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much. Yesterday, we had the press briefing at the last hour of our show. It lasted about 45 minutes with Pete Hegseth and the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Raising Cane. What a great name for a general. And he really outlined everything that happened. He talked about what happened at our military base in Qatar. He talked about these pilots. And then we also know about the soldiers or the seamen that were in the submarine. It's incredible how this was all pulled off and with such precision. He detailed how the strike was conducted, and he spoke about the emotional moment when those American pilots came back to the United States. Listen.
When the crews went to work on Friday, they kissed their loved ones goodbye, not knowing when or if they'd be home. Late on Saturday night, their families became aware of what was happening. And on Sunday, when those jets returned from Whiteman, their families were there. Flags flying and tears flowing. I have chills literally talking about this. The jets rejoined into a formation of 4 airplanes followed by a formation of 3 and came up overhead Whiteman, proudly in the traffic pattern, pitching out to land right over the base, and landing to the incredible cheers of their families who sacrifice and serve right alongside their family members. Like I said, there were a lot of flags and a lot of tears. One commander told me this is a moment in the lives of our families that they will never forget. That, my friends, is what America's Joint Force does.
It was a patriotic moment. And there was two parts of the press conference that I really enjoyed. It was the fact that he was so eloquent in how he explained the mission. And we had Jack Keane on, who has been a legend for a while within the military community of explaining things. He said, I've never seen a press conference in the Pentagon to explain a mission so well. And then the second layer was having the four-star as well as the Secretary of Defense praise the men and women that completed this mission, giving them praise.
Guys, I don't care what the initial report said. There's a lot of damage done.
There it is.
And for 14 years, they've been working on this. They didn't have the type of bomb when they started this, and they didn't know what they were dealing with in terms of nuclear facilities. But some of these groups, sympathetic to us and the West and looking to work against the Ayatollah, some of the same groups that allowed the intelligence to flow and allowed those commanders to be killed and the Quds Force to be assassinated, were able to provide detailed schemes of what Fordo looked like and what Natanz looked like. So they knew about it. They worked on it. They did the prototypes. Think about this. People started this and retired during the mission, just waiting to see what president and at what point were going to actually be forced to take action. Then at the last minute, he finds that they're putting cement in the shafts.
Right.
So they must have figured, wow, the way they can blow up this thing is through the shaft. So they adjusted. So they did it. There's no way this thing is not blown up. And you have the IAEA head. The IAEA head says the centrifuges are definitely blown up. And Iran's foreign minister conceded that our nuclear installations have been badly damaged. So I think the issue of how much damage is not even worth discussing.
Right.
The courage to make the decision and where we go from here really should be where we go, because the Ayatollah, according to people that watch him, they say that he's inspirational. He's usually smooth. Here he was stumbling and he was not clear, and he seemed to be a lack of energy in his delivery. That, if we pick that up in the West,
right.
Can you imagine what the people of Iran think?
And Brian, real quickly, to your point about they find out about that concrete, that just shows you the human intelligence was so good on the ground that they even got the measurement of that concrete so our guys could adjust their plan when they blew that part off.
Right. So there were those three holes, the vents, and they said that Iran, if you didn't get the press conference yesterday, covered them up with cement. Our first strike blew off that cement, and then they were able to shoot number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 down into that center hole, and they said destroy the nuclear facility. And Donald Trump said if Iran attempts to repair their nuclear program, again, that the U.S. will not hesitate to just launch another strike. And then Senator John Kennedy said, and if Tehran tries to do that, then Israel will know. Their intelligence is incredible. They're watching everything on the ground, and they know what's happening.
Although there were 700 executions in Iran by people that they say were spies, including some, they said 3 Mossad agents. I don't know if that's true, but you would think that they would be trying to get to the bottom of it. The other thing was the foreign minister's going to China.
Right.
And he wants to establish, China left him. They buy their oil, but they didn't do anything to defend him. We have to think about, what if China starts coming in with nuclear components of a nuclear program along with North Korea? Do we stop those ships in the Persian Gulf?
It's going to be a big debate.
Remember, China sent in the five airplanes into Iran right before this strike. What were they doing there? What were they taking with them?
That's right.
Those are some of the questions.
But the Secretary of State said he believes it was people. So I'm just saying that's what Marco Rubio said. So he goes, I think they were getting people out.
We're going to be getting that full report sometime soon.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.